Hey everybody, welcome back to Out of the Ordinary with Jay. And first, before I introduce my guest today, I decided to pick a spot that's by an airport for this interview. So every once in a while there's going to be a plane flying over and it'll be gone in a second or two. So anyways, yeah, there might be one coming now. Anyways, your name please, sir.
Brian.
Brian, and where are you from originally?
Phoenix, Arizona.
Oh.
I only know of up to 7 at a time. I'm down to 5. So if you're
Wow.
a native, please hit me up.
What do you do for like occupation, or what do you do?
I run my own after-school creative engineering enrichment experience programs for kids. So we
cool.
build the tallest towers, the longest bridges, vehicles, and devices out of everyday materials. It's a blast.
That sounds super cool. Is there a particular age group for that or not really?
Really 8 on up.
Oh, wow, that's cool. Okay, so I'm going to hit you with my top sort of dozen questions that I always like to get answers on. The first one is, what are your thoughts on aging? And by that I mean, like, you know, aging gracefully, fighting it. What is the perfect age? Health and happiness. Anything to do with aging. What are your thoughts on that?
All right, so like, well, I've done some research on that. Like 36 usually tends to be like the perfect age because your kids are older.
Okay.
You're not having to deal with, with that. You've got enough experience and a little money in the bank, so you can make some choices. You have some opportunities, and you're not still trying to figure everything out. You kind of have things ready to kind of go.
So 36 is actually like a dialed in. You research that?
Yeah, it's
and that seems to be like the.
That's what most people are like. 36. It's about the perfect age.
It kind of makes sense
because you're not so young. Like you're old enough to know better, and you're still young enough not to care.
And you'd still have energy. Plus,
Yep.
You'd have the resources of being in a job for a while. So that does make sense. I didn't know there was an actual age. Okay. Do you have any thoughts on besides that statistic? Like, what do you think about aging? Like, good, bad, indifferent?
Yeah, I try not to most of the time. I take one day at a time and, eat well,
I like
exercise, try to sleep, appropriately.
Okay.
Have some fun.
All right. So along the same subject of aging, supposing I showed up today for this interview and I brought with me, I don't know, we'll call it an orange pill. Mm-hmm. And if you were to take this orange pill, you're granted immortality from this moment on.
Right.
Would you take that pill?
Yes.
You would?
Yes.
Okay. Why would you take that pill?
Because we are, it's the double-edged sword of the Chinese curse of may you live in interesting times.
We live in interesting times. Okay.
We live in very interesting times, and I cannot. And what I hope for the future is tremendous. We get to a place where we could have,
maybe when the plane's coming, you could speak up a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we get, so the future will hold, hopefully things like universal basic income, enough energy for all, a house and food for everyone, the ability to travel and lead a meaningful life and not just
rat race.
Yes, of living in the time famine society that we work more so we can afford more time saving devices, so we can work more so we can afford more time saving devices, so we can work more. So we can afford more time saving devices.
Yeah, no, I gotcha. So exactly right. So here's the thing. I think my answer might be the same as yours, in that I would probably take the pill. Yeah. The one concern that I have, and that I'd love to hear your answer to, is after this plane flies by, this is a busy airport, would be the concern of supposing you took that pill, but I only gave you the pill. That's the only pill. So nobody's coming with you.
Yeah.
Like nobody you know now.
Right.
How do you reconcile that, or do you? What do you think about that?
Well, I think there's some interesting opportunities with that because, there's two ways that people tend to get grumpy in their old age, is they're not embracing what is new.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
And so as long as we stay open and always learning and building relationships, and so we can expand our circles of community.
Right.
And so where most people don't like that is okay, yeah. So I might live all my kids, but they might have grandkids, and their grandkids will have
Grandkids and grandkids,
and now all of a sudden I'm surrounded by, you know,
generations of your offspring or
right.
whatever.
And so it actually can be an added boon because I can have a bigger community over a longer period of time.
Gotcha. That's an interest. I like that way of looking. I've not looked at it that way. So if I'm hearing you correctly, like what you would lose in the friends and family you have now, you would see that as an opportunity for new friends and family in the future, and newness is good to you.
Yeah.
I like that. That's a great answer. Okay. Let's go in the other direction. What would you do if you found out you just had 1 year to live? Like it was definite.
Oh, definitely 1 year to live.
You got 365 days.
Right. And see, now we have goals, we have deadlines, and we can have procedures in place for maximization of my good influence in the world, of both, social, political, environmental. And in that, I would generate, well, the secondaries on that would be building relationships, having new experiences, try some travel in a meaningful way, not just for travel or creating friends' sake. It would be
Purposeful.
It would be value-added friends. So, like, we have situational friends, like people we went to school with.
Work.
Work is a great one, and then we have activity friends of people who we play pickleball with or we go mountain climbing with.
Yeah.
And then we have value-added friends that share common values, and those are much rarer and worthy of the extra effort to cultivate.
And would you still spend your time cultivating and investing in those, knowing that it's coming to an end so rapidly?
Makes it even more valuable.
Okay, I like that. I like that. Okay. If you could go back, if you could travel back in time, what would you change, if anything? And by the way, you can skip any of these if these are not,
Back in time. No, I mean.
No. I'm trying to think of some of the answers I've gotten in the past. One, I've heard everything from like, I've heard everything from like kill Hitler to like definitely not have this hairdo at this age. So I've kind of had the whole again, which is hilarious. But yeah,
right. Things like the kind of the short term, because I wouldn't want to go back any further than antibiotics.
Yeah, well, that's a good, yeah, for sure.
And so to like go backwards in time.
Well, like, would you change something? Would you tell yourself something? Would you change some course in history?
No, because that's actually made me all who I am. The one thing that I could kind of go back is I wish I got involved in being active in politics earlier, before 2016.
Okay. I'll give you another one that a lot of people have said.
Cool.
They would have bought Apple at like in 1990 or something. That's another one. That's another one I get a lot.
Or crypto, like 2 months ago. That would have been a good one.
Yeah, it's been on a tear. Okay, what is the purpose of life? Do you have any guiding principle or anything like that? But what is the purpose of life to you?
Yeah, for me, it's actually to make those people around me that I value's lives better as often as possible.
Gotcha. I like that one. So
and what I found is like when everybody's happy, I'm happier. So
yes, hold on one second. We got a big plane coming in. Basically, to make those that you care about have the best life that they can have, and in so doing, you're helping yourself.
Well, even just people around me on just a daily basis, like we pay it forward. Just like anger ripples on in society for infinite amount of love in perpetuity.
It definitely is. Yeah, I know.
And so, like with Viktor Frankl or Milton Erickson, like they were masters of making people feel good about themselves, and it costs a calorie or two.
Yeah. Now, I don't know that much about this, but I would just say for those of watching, I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Viktor Frankl was in a concentration camp in Nazi Germany and we basically saw around him all the people that were dying and not making it was basically based on attitude or something to look forward to. and he ended up chronicling this later in life. Isn't that
Yeah, so
basically
he
kind of
was
the...
he was a psychotherapist and came up with logos therapy, meaning-based therapy, while his time in camps. And there was one of the more impactful parts of his book.
What's the name of the book again?
Man's Quest for Meaning.
There you go, Man's Quest. Yep.
Is he realized that he was freer than his captors,
Which is
because they
wild.
were, well, if we really think about it, is they were completely constrained, and their choices were limited.
There's orders
to being what they were doing at this time, and even though whether or not they wanted to do it, it was so forced upon them that they really didn't have a choice.
that they were not free.
And he had more choice on how he could believe, think, feel than they did.
That is wild, isn't it, to think about? But what a unique,
paradigm changing perspective.
for sure.
That we have our first and our last choice, how we react to the situation. Our first and our last real choice is how we react to the situation.
Yeah, it's sort of, I talked about this, I forget with who recently, but it is sort of ominous, or almost like it's wonderful, but also I find it scary at the same time, which is just how much power we have by choice or by perspective. Like I could right now, I could get on a plane and I could move to somewhere else, or I could go, take on a job, or try bungee jumping tomorrow. I mean, you know what I mean? Like the power that we have to change our life so instantaneously. It's almost freaky.
Moment to moment, we have our first and our last real choices is how we react to that situation.
Yeah.
And so whether we, take the choices that are presented to us, we look for others. Do we completely reject others' reality and substitute our own? Adam Savage.
Yeah. You've seen, it made me, when you were talking, it made me think of a situation where I can't remember what I was watching, but it was some criminal had done something very violent to someone's kid or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And the father's reaction, I cannot place this what it was from, but the father's reaction, in my mind, I'm like thinking like first guttural instinct, boom,
Right.
But he gives the guy like a hug,
Mm-hmm.
and it just flattens the guy out. Like it, you know what I mean? Just blah.
Yeah.
It just got him more than 1,000 punches could ever do.
Absolutely.
And it's just such an I mean, you have to be a pretty high level guy to be there, I think, given the situation that I remember, but it's super interesting.
Because that's about restorative justice.
Yeah. Anyway.
In training regimens, there's positive and negative reward. So
right.
You can either positively reward the behavior,
stick or carrot,
or no, actually punishment. That's different than negative reinforcement. Negative reinforcement is when you take a negative out of their environment. That makes their environment better, and then that changes. That is a training regimen. Punishment is only a regimen to create anxiety. So our justice system is a punitive system, and it creates anxiety because it creates fear of going to jail, fear of the punishment, but it doesn't solve any of the social ills that creates the injustice in the first place.
Yeah, I'm probably couldn't draw a correlation here, and I don't want to go too deep, but I wonder if it's, in that realm, if life is punishment because life is full of anxiety. It's an interesting sort of,
that can be
you know what I mean?
Well, that's a negative feedback loop.
Yeah,
and at the same time, where
I don't feel that way, by the way. I'm just positing
in a different way, because it costs us about $45,000 a year to keep an inmate in jail.
Okay.
Couldn't we pay them $25,000 a year not to commit crime, and we have $20,000 extra?
I do not know. I don't know. But I'm supposing there's going to be some smaller countries that will try this, and we'll find out.
Yeah, it was just all the hundreds and now thousands of UBI trials that have done all over the world, and they all have
meaning universal basic income.
Yeah, and they all have positive impacts on the individual and the society and the groups that they're in.
Yeah, so maybe we'll go a little rabbit hole here, but in the same vein, I might have it in another question later, I don't know, but like, I feel like homelessness is a great example of this, in that nobody's really seemed to solve it. They've tried imprisoning people. That didn't work.
Yep.
Then they tried saying, hey, you can go ahead and do whatever drugs you want to do here, or hey, here's some money, or here's a big welfare type system. And that really hasn't worked. And I just wonder, like, well, maybe we'll get into this later, but the homelessness situation seems to be a particularly difficult one to solve, no matter the country.
Well, it was better,
and it's super
like
difficult.
there was less homelessness before Reagan because we had institutions. Not saying that they were great,
yeah,
but they had a place for the severely mentally ill to go.
Yeah,
and they weren't, roaming, and fending for themselves, which is kind of horrible if you think about it. And people cannot take care of themselves. We would just fend for themselves.
Yeah,
and now the other part of going back to the universal basic income. Now, if we gave everybody a UBI, now their lives and their benefit, they would be worth more, and there would be whole infrastructures to put in place to make sure that they were that they had a place and they could obtain their UBI and spend it and participate in our economy.
So when you mentioned politics earlier, apparently you were part of the Andrew Yang campaign, and I didn't know.
I was one of I actually have one of his buttons, and I was one of the first, I was one of the original OGs.
Okay. So let's back on some of these questions here real quick.
Yeah.
So what is something a person can do to stay healthy? Do you have any ideas on that?
Have good genetics.
Okay, well, that's a tough one if you weren't born into it. Outside of the great genetics, which is
we do have CRISPR now.
That's
we
true.
can do some editing.
Yeah,
and actually,
slice and dice a couple genes, sure.
And the world's they just undid the ethics restriction on designer babies now too. So
nice.
That was interesting. But healthy, like, that's an interesting thing. Like, what is that? I think a lot of that has to do with individual, like, what is it, physically, mentally, emotionally healthy? Because
yes.
and that's really hard to do, because if it's kind of like Pro Cecil said, man is the measure of all things. What is,
like, who said it?
Pro Cecil, he was one of the Neo-Platonists.
Okay.
And we kind of need some highs and lows. So we kind of need to know how bad things get so we know how good things are.
Here's my thing on that. I'm not even sure I agree with that. But that said, we have that. There are highs and lows.
Yeah.
There's no escaping it. So you might as well
so to be healthy
deal
all
within
the
that,
time, of just saying it's all the same all the time. It's kind of boring.
I mean, that is definitely part of one of the things I would love for this channel to accomplish somehow. It would be to make life this much better for just anybody that watches it, because, no matter what religious doctrine somebody's into or what philosophical school, pretty much life's a struggle for. I've never met anyone that it wasn't for, and that's just the way that it is.
Well,
and so to the extent that they can be made a little easier, man, that'd be something.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's helped me, healthy and active and energetic, is I kind of quit the SAD diet. Probably about a decade ago.
What does quitting the SAD diet mean?
That is the standard American diet. SAD. SAD.
Are you talking about, like,
burgers,
food?
fries?
Oh, okay.
Fast food, high protein, high animal intake of animal products.
So you're saying, if I'm hearing you right, for you, just not eating, say, fast food every day has been a boon to your person?
Right, and actually not eating meat or animal products every day.
Oh, are you vegan or vegetarian, or what are you?
I'm more of a pescatarian.
Okay, so fish.
And so I eat some fish and my own chicken eggs. That's pretty much.
How long ago did you start that?
About a decade ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's you were a little bit ahead of the loop there, or ahead of the curve, or right at the curve, I think. That's pretty good.
Well, it also turned out that, like, it helped that my daughter came home from her mother's house with a note from the doctor saying she had high cholesterol for an adult at 10.
That's crazy. So you can see in this camera here, I'm a pretty thin guy.
Yeah.
I have genetically super high cholesterol too, and so I have to work at it too. So I eat in certain ways and whatever. It's still high. It's still elevated. My LDL is still pretty high, but it's just so weird. People would never think that. Just, the one look at me like, oh, his cholesterol's in check. Not really. I have to work at it, and it's such a weird thing.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So then I had to go join this whole deep dive of diet and nutrition.
Figure it out.
And figure it out, and got her cholesterol down to, about normal, and all of a sudden then I was doing, I was doing better, and all of a sudden I didn't need a nap after I ate, and
So I'm just going to ask, you seem like a pretty thoughtful fellow. You're quoting some philosophers here.
I try.
And pretty compassionate based on some of your answers too. This question I've just started asking, but you're the second person I've ever asked it, but how can you be kind when someone is harming themselves? Let me give you an example. Let's say you've got a child that is, I don't know, say they're addicted to some substance like alcohol, something they're known to already not have a great liver.
Right.
And then they show up and they brag to you about the special deal they got on a case of beer because it was a good price. Like, my question is, how can you be kind to someone who's harming themselves?
I think gets into my 3 R's of relationships.
Is R one of relationship? That's already 1 R, so there's 3 more?
There's 3 more, yes.
Okay.
It's the 3 R's of relationships.
Okay.
So you have, yes. And then it's respect, resolve, and rapport.
Respect, resolve, rapport. Okay, describe that.
So respect is, you have to understand that I am my own entity and I have my own wants, needs, and values. And you are your own entity with your own values.
So don't try pushing your values up on me.
And so, so we have to respect that, and then how we rapport, communicate about that, and then how much commitment, resolve, how much are we committed or resolved to rapport about our common respect for each other.
Okay, can I challenge you on the respect one just real quick with a different hypothetical?
Please.
Say you have somebody, you have a very close friend, childhood friend, you grew up with them. And every time you see them, you know they're going to do 2 things. They're going to complain about money, maybe ask you to borrow some money after they've showed you whatever new device it is that they couldn't afford. Like, hey, Brian, look at my new iPad. Man, I hate being broke. Do you have like $5 I could borrow?
Right.
How can you be kind to someone who's harming themselves in that situation?
Well, that is
like,
the choice. Their finances are not your responsibility.
Okay.
And
that's a good point. I get you. I like that.
That is their responsibility. One thing that I have done is I will loan you this, or I will give you this amount of money if you never ask me for money again.
Maybe it's a control issue that I'm kind of going over here, because I'm hearing what you're saying, but the thing that entered into my mind is like, yeah, but I really don't want them harming themselves. I really don't want them to hurt themselves. They're doing so much damage. I know they see it because they bring it up every time they see me. I used to have this good friend of mine, real heavy guy. Every time he'd see me, no matter what we were doing, first thing out of his mouth would be something like, I really haven't eaten that much today. I wasn't asking. Right? So I know he knows that he has a problem with it. Yeah. I never did bring it up. No, not really. You know what I mean? Only if but that would be his entry. Instead of like, hey, how you doing? Like, I didn't really eat that much today. So, you know what I mean? Whatever I do next is okay.
Wouldn't it be a kindness to give him assurance that doesn't matter to you?
Yeah, I did do those things, and it didn't matter to him. I mean, it probably did matter, but it didn't help him escape his negative habit.
Because his negative self-talk inside his head is much louder and much more often than your few words.
Totally agree with that. That's what I'm angling for is there anything we can do to help people not be harmful to themselves? Or is it literally once they're past the age of 18, you just get out of the way, you're on your own, go read a book, go listen to a podcast? I mean, I mean, you're just out of it and you're just there to be accepting, even if it's even if it's a diabolical behavior to themselves.
Even if it hurts.
So you just give hugs.
Yeah.
Okay. I like that. I like that. I think there's a lot of wisdom there, but it is difficult to watch.
Yeah.
I guess that's where being a good friend is coming in, as you take it.
Yeah, because you have to have the empathy that they are working with everything they have to do the best they have every day, just like you are, just like I am. Well,
and the reverse of that, one of the reasons why I try to, and I don't know how good I am at taking advice either, but one of the reasons why I try to limit what I say, or at least I have over the last few years, is because it can also be perceived by the other person as a vote of no confidence. You know what I mean? I have to tell you this because you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
You know, I'm telling you this because you're clueless. You know what I mean? And that's not helpful.
That hurts even worse.
Yeah, that's a blow to the ego, to everything.
You're also taking on a power role.
Right.
And that is not that is not kinship. That is not kind. We get the word kind from kinship.
Yeah.
And so being in an equal power place.
So is it your perspective then that in a situation like any of the three I've described, that for them to make a turnaround that's positive for their life, they have to come to it on their own, and that more often than not might be some sort of rock bottom situation?
That's usually how people work, is that it has to hurt internally more than the emotions for us to change.
Right.
So we have to have a higher cost. It has to pain us more than our emotional, our fear of change.
Yeah.
For us to change.
And what I've seen in people that I know that I've kind of watched this happen with, and maybe even my own self, but is, you know, as you're digging, say I'm in the case of the overeater or the alcoholic or anything else that we consider not, you know, healthy, is that the farther that they dig, it's like it becomes so difficult to get out, if not for rock bottom, because like once you admit this one thing, like the house of cards just starts falling. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And it's almost like an identity crisis or existential crisis. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's just like
this way?
Yeah, and like now and the idea of starting over or becoming new is overwhelming, I would imagine.
It's a whole lot of fear.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. That's like the devil you know versus the devil you don't, right?
Exactly. And we avoid that to, you know, there's a lot of denial all over the place for that.
Okay, so let's, while we're with these difficult questions, I'm going to hit you with one more.
Cool.
Do you think people care to really understand? Meaning, if you were giving me your point of view, or like let's say I work for you, okay, and I've been doing a horrible job. You've given me a bunch of chances, but now you've got to terminate me, and you've really gone to great lengths to explain to me why this has to be done. Maybe even point me in a direction of a job I might be better suited for, or anything like that.
Well, we've had conversations before that you are showing me you don't want to work here anymore.
Right. But my response to that could be, after you give me this whole explanation, my response could be just, why didn't you just tell me I was fired? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I wonder if people sometimes just don't really care about context or care to understand. They just want to know, what is it you really want?
See,
do you know what I mean?
There's actually two different things. Actually, It's interesting that there's two different, types of languages.
Okay.
Like a lot of Romance language are high context languages. And
what is English?
And English is a low context language.
Okay.
So, like in Italian, there's a word, I forget what it is right now, but it's, don't listen to what I said, but listen to what I meant.
Oh, wow.
And see, English doesn't have those things. We're very straightforward and we use very little
like descriptive words,
yeah,
or adjective,
or even metaphors. There we go.
Oh,
we don't use, we don't even use a lot of metaphors.
Right.
It's very specific in that. And so when you're used to a low context and then somebody starts giving you all the kind of high context, there's a little cognitive dissonance there.
Right.
So I kind of get that. And just like you've already showed me you don't want to work here anymore, and now is your opportunity to go pursue other opportunities.
But it just even seems more so to me, maybe because I'm getting a little older, or maybe it's because of the sort of the TikTok-itis, shorts and snippets world that we live in. But it's like, if I'm having a conversation with someone at lunch, more often than not, I feel like, not all the time, but I feel like not only do they not care to understand my position on something or whatever, I don't really care to understand theirs half the time either. And it's like, we're just like waiting for the other person to shut up so we can have our turn.
Yeah. Do
you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's kind of a terrible phenomena.
It is.
Right?
So
it's that whole, one mouth, two ears quota.
That was actually Epictetus, that you have 2 ears and 1 mouth for reasons.
Yeah, but nobody, not nobody, but a whole lot of people seem to have that in reverse, self included. I have big ears. I get like free HBO with these things, but like you can tell even right now in this interview, I like to talk. Mm-hmm. Anyway, but do you think people really care to understand? Do they? They might.
That takes effort and bandwidth and time. And a lot of the things that we don't have a lot of.
Mm-hmm.
Our whole world, like even this, what we're doing right now, is all for seeking eyeballs and views and attention. And we have, what commitment is the exclusion of all other possibilities of being. So when we are going about our day, the amount of shiny things that want our eyeballs is it's thousands upon thousands.
Literally mind blowing.
Yes.
Yeah. Or maybe not.
And our brain is already having to, block billions of points of input for us. It's so bad that it used to be that it took 7 times for us to realize that we heard it.
Wow.
Now it's up to the 20s.
That I believe you're talking about, like a marketing message. It went from, say, 7 to 20, or any message for that matter.
Any message.
Wow, because I remember it used to be 7 touches. Show them this pizza 7 times, they're going to want to buy it. Now it's up to like 20. That makes sense. I believe that.
Yeah, or even to get a shift of a perspective that they already know about, it takes 9.
Which is impossible. That's a lot of time.
That's huge.
To tie these two last topics together, it just made me think. I've often joked with like friends and family, like, if I ever really wanted to reach you with some sort of advice, and vice versa, right? Since talking to you is not really going to do it, what I need to do is go start a blog or make a podcast, and then when you go find it yourself and you listen to it, and I think there's actually something to that, which is to say, if they find it themselves and it's on their own time, they're more apt to listen.
Yes. Than
you pushing it onto them. Do you know what I mean? And so I think there's merit to that.
And if it's a story.
A story. Mm.
So our brains, we've evolved to run on story. We learn on story. And, and without story, just giving you pieces of information. Well, those are just bits of pieces of information. How do they fit? What do they mean?
Right.
And how do they change life? And so, like, really having the stories about the non-written, the stories about, like, oh, my friend did this and this, and so I'm not going to do that. That's a story, and you learn from others. That's vicarious classical conditioning. We can see it, we can hear it, but we don't usually work on fact or rational. Because otherwise we would all be driving smart, electric cars.
Oh yeah, or whatever.
Tiny dwells and
right. And no, we are easily. I had read that book. What was it called? Oh gosh, just recently. It's an old book called Propaganda by, I can't remember the guy's name. It was a super interesting book. But so next question for you. If money was no object and you could bring anyone with you that you wanted, where would you live? So you get to live anywhere and everybody can come with you that you want or don't want. But what is your favorite place on earth that you would like to live?
Well, I keep choosing here because that's pretty great. So
really, here it is.
Yeah, I just let everybody in the Phoenix metro area, you know, if money was no object, they'd all have a UBI. We'd show how great.
So you're living the dream right here.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
I don't have to shovel. I can't.
Do you have a second? Do you have a second place?
Let's see.
Sounds like you like sunshine.
Yeah, I like it warm.
Okay.
I'm a desert creature.
Okay. Okay, so
I was kind of interested about the line in Saudi Arabia, but that's looking like not a.
What is it?
The line is
Oh, no,
actually a linear city. It was actually going to be, well, Apollo Solare, who's a local architect who passed away not too long ago, designed the first linear city that it was houses on either side of like a tram.
Yeah.
And so everybody was no more than 50 yards away from mass transit.
Oh, that's cool.
But then you were also no more than 20 yards away from open nature spaces.
That's a cool idea.
Right? So you could have the city that's
best of both worlds.
Infinitely long.
Yeah.
And even have nodes that connected. You have a whole grid. And the line was, we were starting to build something like that.
Yeah.
And now, that's looking like it's way over cost. And
well, since you're from here, have you heard of Tempe cul-de-sac?
Yes.
Okay, so you're familiar with that project? Okay, it's kind of a cool thing. Okay.
It's kind of interesting to have like a carless, island inside of a car essential town.
Yeah, it is interesting, but that's probably where they could do it. Would be close to ASU, because that is pretty dense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What do you think about our inner monologues? Not just mine and yours, but just in general, people's inner monologues. What do you think about that phenomena?
You are not your thoughts.
Say that again?
You are not your thoughts. You are not your inner monologue.
Oh, okay. What do you mean by that?
That's just noise in your head, where you have choice as how you act upon those, and not needing to justify it or concede to those voices. That you have the opportunity, you have the agency,
right,
to do not only what you think is right and also feel is right, and not have to listen to those.
And this is very modern psychology, what you're talking. I mean, I'm sure it has very, deep, older historic roots, but this is a lot of modern psychology is doing this. I've not just read, but a while back I read this book called The Happiness Trap. And the way that they describe it as a big source of anxiety and frustration and a lack of happiness is that, thoughts come in very oftentimes negative because, good out, bad out. Evolutionary speaking, it made a lot of sense to know the negative. Where's the warring tribe that's going to kill me? Where's the tiger that's going to eat me? Yeah. Where, and so, but basically he makes the argument that these thoughts come in. Most of our human suffering is what he calls fusing with those thoughts, meaning the thought comes in and you fuse with it and that becomes your thing, as opposed to sort of more mindfulness, which say, okay, I see you thought. That's interesting that you came into my head. Thanks for coming in today, and letting it go, or saying, yeah, that's interesting. I'll take a look. Yeah. Being more in control, because you're not in control of them just flipping through there all day long, but you are in control of, or if you practice it, you can get good at deciding what is worthy of your time.
Yeah, because
right?
that was the big differentiation between the behavioralists and the cognitivists in psychology. That we look at animals and that their stimulus and response, where we're human beings, where we have this huge cerebral cortex, that we can be stimulus think response, and we can even have, and those thoughts in our heads and those voices that we hear are just stimuli.
Boy, I sure see a whole lot of just responding, though, don't you?
Oh,
it's self-included too much still,
and
but it's interesting.
And sometimes no action is an action. It's
Wei
just
Wu or whatever,
it's
right?
Wu Wei.
Wei Wei. There you go.
Wu Wei.
Wu Wei.
And you just let it pass on by like a cloud in the sky.
Yeah. Wu Wei. That's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's effortless efficiency.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
know, don't move the rock. The rock will eventually move on its own.
Right. Yeah. What's more powerful, the rock or the water?
Yep.
Right? Yeah. Okay. Do you ever get deja vu or weird occurrences? If so, what is that like for you?
No, I really don't. It's been a long time since I had anything that was like, oh, that was weird.
Sorry.
No, actually, no, that's pretty good. Because yeah, I did, and then I realized. Well, then I did some research on those and found out that they were small epileptic, you know, misfirings in our brain, and like they don't mean anything.
So the matrix over here.
Yeah. It's,
Okay. Last question. Do you get deja vu or weird occurrences? What's that like for you? Thanks for the laugh.
Where was that cat again? Did that cat just go again? Like back?
Hey, Brian, thanks for the interview, man. Appreciate it.